Hey, welcome to Conversations with a Therapist podcast. I'm Jennifer Chalo. I am a counseling psychologist and I am a writer, and I am also the host of this show. My work focuses on breaking down complex psychological concepts into practical and actionable frameworks that you can implement today to build a meaningful life. If that is something that you're interested in, then I highly encourage you to subscribe to this podcast and share the link with at least one person in your contact list. You never know who desperately needs to hear this message today, and you could be the person that connects them to a resource that changes the rest of their life. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you have any questions about psychology, then send them to the email address in the description box. With that said, let's jump right into today's episode. Cults and their leaders rely on two important things to make their messages go viral, to make their messages reach many people, to make sure that the agenda of the cults is advanced. These two things are, one, human psychology, and two, really good marketing. If you are new here, this is episode 3 of the cults series. We are trying to understand what exactly is a cult, why do cults exist, how do they operate, and the psychology they use to manipulate people to join them. In this episode, I will be covering everything to do with the psychological concepts that cults manipulate to win you over, to keep you tied to their cult, and the psychological concepts that they use to make you feel like you're special and that you belong to an elite group just by belonging to their particular cult. The thing about good marketing is that when you package your product well enough and you rely on something like word of mouth, which is a very powerful marketing technique, you're going to get as many people as you want. And cult leaders have managed to understand that if you can get people to spread the word about your cult, you don't even have to spend too much money advertising whatever you're selling, your particular brand of a cult. You don't have to spend too much money advertising it. People will advertise it for you. So the big part that they focus on will be manipulating human psychology. They will manipulate the weaknesses that exist in human psychology. They will use persuasion techniques that are very powerful to make you feel special and to make you feel that you need to pass on this message that they have to the rest of your family members, your friends, and people that you know. Something I've mentioned in the past, and I will repeat again for the sake of new members, is that, one, I am not attacking anybody with this series. I am not out there to attack your church, to attack your friends, to attack your family, to attack something that you've begun, a movement you've created. I'm not saying that you're a cult leader. I'm not attacking anybody out there with this message that I am talking about. This entire series is for informational purposes only. I want you to just know what cults are and to understand how they operate so that you can stay vigilant and don't find yourself in a cult. So, everything you hear requires you to have an open mind. Be very open-minded to understand that this is just information that exists in the public domain that I am relaying to make sure that we all understand what is happening around us. When I was doing the research for this episode, I came across 11 psychological concepts that cult leaders and cults use in general to reach new members and to manipulate the members that exist. Out of these 11, there is one that is very controversial. Its proponents swear by it. They believe that it is the best thing that has ever happened. Its opponents completely disagree, and they actually consider it a pseudoscience. So stick around till the end for that specific one that is controversial, that is considered a pseudoscience by its opponents. And with that said, let's get started with the psychological concepts that cult leaders use to manipulate you. The first one, cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance is the discomfort that a person feels when their behavior does not align with their values or their beliefs. For example, if you are, let's say, a Christian and you believe that smoking is a sin, then you go ahead and start smoking. It's going to become a cognitive dissonance for you. You're going to feel some kind of discomfort because the particular behavior you're practicing right now, smoking, goes against the beliefs you have that smoking is a sin. To deal with that discomfort, you're going to end up having to make a decision. One, do you decide to stop smoking so that you no longer feel the discomfort of conflicting values and behaviors, or you're going to entirely forget the story about smoking being a sin or smoking being a bad thing, and you're going to start accepting pole pole that smoking is not the worst thing on the planet. And so that way you can reduce the discomfort you're feeling towards smoking, which is a behavior that does not align with your values. So you'll either change your behavior or you will change your values. But for some people, they still find a way to continue doing that the same thing over and over again, even when they don't believe that it is the right thing. So that's a special breed of people. That's not who we're talking about. Most people will either deal with the behavior, either change the behavior, or they will change their values. When it comes to cults, cult leaders will often create a sense of cognitive dissonance in their members by promoting beliefs that conflict with the beliefs that these new members had. So if you're a new person in the cult, you had values, knowledge, things you believed in the past, yeah? And then you join the cult, this cult leader is going to start teaching you things that go against the things that you believe in. Most of the time, they will tell you things that you do not already agree with, things that you would ordinarily argue, But they're telling you these things because those are their beliefs. And when they bring this up and you find that it is uncomfortable to you because it is creating a cognitive dissonance, you're going to start looking for ways of dealing with that cognitive dissonance. Most of the time, you're going to start rationalizing your behaviors and your beliefs to reduce that discomfort. You're going to start accepting what they're telling you, pole pole, and then rationalizing it because you can't hold both thoughts, you can't hold both the beliefs that that belong to this cult leader and the beliefs that belong to you. You can't hold both at the same time. So you will need to let go of one. And pole pole, they will find a way to eradicate your beliefs so that you can adopt their beliefs. Remember, when it comes to cults, their main mission is to eradicate your sense of self, to eradicate the person that you are, so that they can create a group of people who believe in the same thing. If you have your own beliefs and your own values that do not align with the cult, then you are a problem to the cult. And that's why a cult leader, an organization that is a cult, will try its best to make you conform, to make you accept their beliefs over your own beliefs, to make you forget yourself, to make you doubt yourself, to make you step away from the things that you believe in so that you can accept the things that the cult believes in. That's the only way that the cult will be able to operate. Because if you have 10 people with different beliefs and values, then it will be very difficult for you to run a cult because everybody is doing their own thing. So they need for you to align with the rest of the organization. And that's why if they create cognitive dissonance in you, in one way or another, by the things they do, the things they say, then because you're going to be in discomfort of that cognitive dissonance, it's going to bring discomfort in you, emotional discomfort. You're going to find ways to deal with that discomfort. And most of the time, you're going to find ways such as rationalizing the beliefs that you're being told and stepping away from your own beliefs. And that makes it easier for you now to accept the new things that you're being told. You'll notice that if you have dealt with the cognitive dissonance, if you've been able to rationalize enough and now you've started accepting the things that the cult leader is telling you, then it becomes easier for you to go and preach the gospel of that cult. Of course, remember your job is going to be recruiting other people to the cult. It will be very difficult for you to recruit other people into the cult if you do not believe in the thing that you're talking about. If you do not believe the agenda of the cult, then it will be very difficult for you to convince other people outside to come and join the cult. Yet, part of your job as a cult member is going to be recruiting other people. And that's why, for the cult leader, it is important that you step away from your own beliefs. That the only way that you deal with your cognitive dissonance is by stepping away from your beliefs and accepting the beliefs of the leader and the cult in general, so that it will be easier for you to pass on that message to other people. Remember, they rely on your word of mouth. They rely on you telling other people about the cult so that other people can join the organization. So this is how they manipulate you using cognitive dissonance. They create that sense of cognitive dissonance in you, and they find ways of helping you manage that cognitive dissonance by rationalizing and stepping away from your beliefs. They want you to rationalize whatever they're telling you, to try to see their point of view only, and to step away from your own beliefs so that you can deal with your cognitive dissonance in an unhealthy way, obviously, because now you're not dealing with the cognitive dissonance in the right way. You are just accepting another person's beliefs because yours cannot exist at the same time with the other beliefs of the cult leader. So think about it that way. Think about the fact that cognitive dissonance is a painful emotional experience. Most people find it very difficult to have those conflicting thoughts and beliefs and behaviors, and so they will do whatever it takes to eradicate them. And sometimes you'll find that whatever it takes at this point, when it comes to a cult, is you stepping away from your own beliefs and accepting the beliefs of the cult leader. That's how they use cognitive dissonance to manipulate you. The second psychological concept that cult leaders will use to manipulate you is confirmation bias. So, cult leaders will often reinforce their beliefs and practices through confirmation bias by encouraging you as a member to look for information and interpret the information that you find in ways that support the worldview of the cult. So, whatever information you come across, let's say you're asking a question about something. I don't have an example right now, but let's say you're asking a question about a particular concept that the cult leader is talking about. Actually, I have an example. Let's say the cult leader has told you that out there you will never survive on your own, and you have to stick with the group because only the group cares for you. The cult leader will encourage that you go and look for evidence that supports that belief. But they will never allow you to look for evidence that shows the opposite of that. They will never allow you to believe that there are people out there who care for you. So every time that you try to connect, let's say with a family member or a friend, and that family or member or friend calls you out for being in the cult and tells you, oh, you need to stop, whatever you're doing is wrong, you're going to feel like you're being attacked. And that is going to confirm to you what the cult leader told you, that nobody out there cares for you. Because every time you talk to the outsiders, you talk to people who are not in the cult, it feels like they are always fighting you. And that's exactly what the cult leader told you, that the people outside will fight you. But you see, your mind is clouded to think that when people confront you, they are fighting you. To think that every time that somebody raises an opposing point of view from yours, they are the enemy. That is something that the cult leader has taught you, or the cult group believes, that outsiders are enemies, and every time somebody has a differing point of view, they are attacking you as a person. They are not they're not raising a point. So a cult leader will make you believe that the information you gather is supporting the things that they have told you. So they will make sure that information you gather, the way you interpret it, is always in ways that support the beliefs and of the group. If outsiders are fighting you and group members are supporting you, then the cult leader will use that to convince you that anyway, the people outside do not care about you. Your only true friends and your only true family are the people in the group. At first, they will plant ideas in your mind. Remember, they have to control your mind. That's the only way they are able to put these ideas in your head. They have to control you. So they will put ideas in your mind. Then they will help you find the evidence that supports that nonsense. Whatever idea they have put in your head that is a lie, they will look for the evidence that supports it. They will never raise evidence that contradicts the things that they are saying. Never ever. They never look at two sides of the argument. The only side they look at is the side that relates and agrees to their own worldview, right? So think about it this way. For example, let's say you have like this is an analogy that I came across that I really, really loved. Think about it this way. In the beginning, the cult leader will give you an idea. It's false most of the times, but they'll give you that idea. And that idea is like a tabletop. That tabletop does not have any legs, so it is not standing on anything. Then every time you interact with them, every time they come and tell you anything, they will be bringing you new evidence to support the idea that they gave you, to support that tabletop. So it's like they are giving you legs to add to the table, to that tabletop. Eventually, with enough evidence, the tabletop will have enough legs to stand on its own. That way, it becomes a firm belief. It becomes an idea that has supporting evidence. Only that this evidence is flawed because it is evidence that is only supporting one point of view. That's how they do it. So they will never allow you to have any beliefs, any evidence, any information that goes against the things that they believe in. They do not want you to have 2 points of views. They only believe only one point of view exists. And the point of view that exists and the one that is right is their point of view, not any other person's, because everybody else is demonized and treated as the enemy. If you remember what we spoke about in the previous episode, we spoke about how they create dependence in you. They want you to be dependent fully on them for social support, for financial support, to depend on them and the group. They need you to be part of the group and never an individual. And so, if they can confirm to you through the evidence that they bring you, the evidence that they send your way, that the only people who care about you are the people in the group, then it will be easier for you to stick around with the group and to continue serving the group and advancing the agenda of the cult. So think about it that way. Think about the fact that confirmation bias is a very, very powerful psychological concept. It is well researched. It is in the science. It is in the literature. You can look it up and you will see how confirmation bias exists in almost everything that we do. If somebody tells you you're a bad person, if, let's say, somebody who is powerful in your life, a family, let's say it's a parent. If a parent tells a child that the child is bad, that's a very powerful figure in their life. And everything they do will be seen through that lens. So they will be looking for evidence that confirms that they are actually bad people. If somebody tells you you're lazy, it's very easy to start seeing the evidence of your laziness, especially if that person is a very, very powerful figure in your life. So that is how cult leaders use confirmation bias to manipulate you. They want you to believe everything they tell you, and they have access to the information, and you're not allowed to look for any other contradicting information. Remember, that thing about isolating you, if they can isolate you and you do not have other people outside of the cult to bounce off ideas, to speak with, to communicate with, and to find more information about whatever you're reading about, what you're understanding about the cult and all these things, then it is easier for them to manipulate you, because the only people you have contact with are the people in the cult who can confirm the things that the cult leader is saying, right? So that is the same way that they use confirmation bias. They are looking for ways to confirm to you that the only thing that exists for you, the only place that you belong to, is in the cult and nowhere else. Only cult members are your friends. Only cult members are your true family. That is how cult leaders operate. That is how cult leaders manipulate you and make you think that you are alone. The third psychological concept that cult leaders use to manipulate you is called social proof. So cult leaders will use social proof to persuade you to join the cult by showing you about other people that have already joined the cult, other people who are doing things in the cult, so that they can create a sense of safety and belonging. Remember, most of the time when you join a cult, you will join that cult not knowing it's a cult, first of all, and secondly, it will be because somebody introduced you to the cult. And so they will tell you, Ebu honor your friend, the one who brought you here. Ebu honor the person who introduced you to this cult, your family member, your brother, whoever brought you to the cult. Honor they came to the cult, and look at how their life is different. Look at how they're thinking differently. Look at how they're living differently. Look at how they are part of a group that cares for them and loves them deeply. That is the kind of social proof they will be using to convince you that you need to join the cult as well. Social proof is, again, another powerful psychological concept. Most people will use things that they have seen their friends use. That's why we keep asking our friends for recommendations. That's why we ask people to review our products on the internet. That's why we look at the reviews when we are looking for something on the internet. When you have an idea and you're thinking, maybe I want to travel to X and Y place, most of the times you're going to go to the internet and look for that place. You're going to look at the reviews and look at who stayed there, what was the experience like. That's the same case with cult leaders and cults in general. They will need other people to convince you. As I said at the beginning, word of mouth is a strong marketing technique. It's a marketing technique that works for very many people in very many different situations. If you're looking for a therapist, you're likely to ask your friend, I know you went to therapy. Can you recommend to me the therapist that you went to? It's the same case with this thing with cults. They will highly encourage you to bring somebody to the organization. They will tell you, bring a friend next time you come through. If it's a church, they will tell you, come with your friend, come with your neighbor, come with somebody, bring a new member to the church. They will, if you have been brought by the new member, they will tell you about how, look at this friend of yours, mwenye alikuleta, and how they are living well and how they are looking different. So you will find that it is rare that you will be surrounded by complete strangers. And even if you're surrounded by complete strangers, those complete strangers will have used very soft language to convince you to join the cult. Rarely will you be grabbed in the street when you're walking and you're put in a van and brought into a cult and you're told now you have to be a member. It is rare that will ever happen. I don't know if that has ever happened actually. Most of the time it will be you walking into the organization. Most of the times you will go there knowing unenda to this friend's church or this friend's organization where they usually meet for X, Y, and Z or whatever it is that the cult tells you. So, social proof is a powerful thing that they use to convince you that other people have joined and you should too, because why not? Why would you not join and your friends have already joined? Why would you want to be left outside? Nobody wants to. It's that thing for FOMO, fear of missing out. Nobody wants to miss out. And again, powerful psychological concepts at play. The fourth one is authority bias. So authority bias is something that works in very, very many contexts. That's why people in authority are seen to be powerful, because there's something about them. They are holding a position of power. So cult leaders will use their perceived authority, because of course they have a level of authority. That's why they're leading the cult. That's why they are the cult leader. So they will use their perceived authority to persuade you as a member to follow their commands without questioning them. Sometimes they will use fear and guilt to enforce compliance in you and the fellow members. Remember, as I said, they will use things like shaming you publicly to make sure that you are compliant and you are obedient. So let's say, for example, when you talk about religious cults, the cult leader will tell you about how they have been sent by God, and they will tell you how they have been chosen by God. They have been given this message to bring to you by God, because it is them. They're the powerful person in the organization. And the question will be, why would you not listen to them? Why would you reject God's chosen? That's the question they will be asking you. They will tell you about how the Bible says X, Y, and Z. Or God has sent me to tell you X, Y, and Z. But they will never tell you which part of that Bible exactly they are quoting. They will never tell you which part of the Bible says whatever they are saying. Because they know if you speak with authority, there's a possibility that people will listen to you without questioning. Yeah? Cult leaders have understood that being in power, holding a position of power, gives them leverage over everybody else. They will never, as I've said, they will never tell you about the Bible quotes they are using when they tell you that God sent them, or that they are speaking God's message, or God has told them, or God has chosen them. The Bible says, Bibilio sema manenos. They will never quote exactly where they are reading this scripture from. The other thing is that they will never teach you how they got access to God, so that even you can get access to God and receive those messages directly like they did. Because they want you to believe that they are the person in the middle. They are the middleman between you and God. And you have to trust them. Because if you don't trust them, who will you trust? If they have been sent by God and you don't trust them, are you questioning God? Are you questioning them, the chosen of the Lord? Those are the questions they will be asking you. And that our desire to defer decision making, and our desire to defer to authority, to let people in authority make the decisions for us, sometimes puts us in problems. Because when somebody is in authority and you have this, it's not even respect. At this point, it's fear. When you're afraid of people in authority, it will be very difficult for you to question them. So I'm not saying that people should become rebellious towards people in authority. I'm just saying that if authority cannot be questioned, then I don't know what exactly is happening at that point. So authority, just because somebody is in authority, does not mean that they cannot be questioned. I am a firm believer that anybody should be questioned for whatever they do. If the person in authority cannot be questioned, then there's something questionable about them. Because they believe that for them, they are the final, the people who give the final word, and you are supposed to believe them blindly. Remember I mentioned about how organizations and cults do not desire critical thinking. If you cannot question somebody, you cannot think critically about the things they are saying and the things they are doing. If you tell them, Ebu, tell me, hapo pale umesema the Bible says, which Bible verse are you quoting? And they cannot say it, then they are going to start attacking you. You know they will start attacking you. And the people who have already accepted this message are also going to attack you. They're going to be like, why are you being difficult? See, this person has read the Bible. See, this person went to theology school. Wanajua kitu yenye wanasema. You are a pastor. You a nabii. Have you been chosen? So why would you contradict? Why would you try to fight the chosen one of the Lord? So you'll find that this thing for conforming and accepting things blindly is also enforced, as I said in the previous episode, is also enforced by the group members. They also enforce that behavior, that conforming behavior. They don't want you to make too much trouble. And so it's very difficult for you to also make trouble when everybody else is accepting whatever is happening. The fifth psychological concept that cults and cult leaders will use to make you believe that you are special is the us versus them. So for cult leaders and cults in general, there's usually the in-group and the out-group. And they will use cognitive biases such as black and white thinking to polarize people, to make people believe that they are special, they are superior, they are better, they belong to an elite group, and they possess unique knowledge and abilities. They are the special people, they are the chosen ones. They're the ones who are doing what is meant to be done. They're the ones who are living the right way, So, for example, I have had with Christians, I'm not saying Christianity is a cult, but although I did mention in the beginning somewhere that once upon a time, people believed that all religions are cults. And yeah, that's the thing. Anyway, back to the point. The point is, you'll hear some Christians say people are either believers or non-believers, and there's nothing in the middle. I don't know if there's something in the middle, because even me have questions about Christianity and faith. But what I'm saying is, most groups, most religions, most organizations will create an us versus them. There's always going to be the in group and the out group. And the people in the in group will always feel special because, for example, if you're a Christian and you're a believer, you are in the in group, you're a child of the Most High God, you're the chosen, you're among the chosen generation. If you are among the sons and daughters of God, then of course you're going to feel special. Of course you're going to feel that you're chosen. Of course you're going to feel that you belong to an elite group. And with that, you're going to start feeling that whatever you believe in, of course, must be superior. I mean, why would it not be superior if you're the one who belongs to the elite group? Why would it not be superior if you're the one who belongs to the group that will go to heaven, the group that will see Jesus, the group that will sit at the right hand of God? Why would you not feel special? So these are some examples of things that Christians and religious groups will use, and cults in general will use to make you believe that you're special, to make you believe that you belong to a group that is chosen, a group that is doing the right thing. They will even actually when you listen to every religious cult that has ever existed, there's always going to be something about that group being the chosen one, and that is how cult leaders will use the psychological concept of us versus them, the polarization, the making you believe that you're superior, the black and white thinking, making you believe that people are either or, there is no shades of gray. People who operate on black and white thinking believe that things exist in extremes. There's nothing in the shades of gray. They believe that people are either good or people are bad. There are no people who are a bit of both. That is not something that exists when it comes to people who operate in black and white thinking. Cognitive biases are very, very common. They are very, very popular. I think it's important that people understand just because you have operated with cognitive biases does not mean that you're a bad person. All of us have been people who have operated with cognitive biases, and the most important thing is learning to notice when you're using a cognitive bias, when you're wearing a lens that is distorting the reality. And cognitive biases ordinarily will distort reality. You'll believe that things are a specific way, only that you're forgetting that that is subjective. Reality is not always colored in the goggles that you're wearing. So if you are wearing green goggles, everything on the planet will look green. If you're wearing red goggles, everything will look red. But that is not reality. And that's how cognitive biases work. And with cult leaders, as I have said, they're going to use the us versus them. Us, we are special. Those guys are bad. Those guys are non-believers. Those guys are heathens. Those guys are infidels. Those guys are, all those things, all those names that they will call the people who do not belong in the group. Those are the people who will be demonized. Even ex-members will be demonized. They will be put in the them category and do not interact with them because those people are not doing the thing we are supposed to be doing. There's always going to be that back and forth between us versus them. Number 6, sunk cost fallacy. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but let me explain. So assume you've been making an investment in a particular thing, behavior, business, whatever. You've been making an investment for a while. But then with time you realize that the costs of this investment outweighs the benefits of that investment. Of course, the right course of action is to abandon that particular investment. But then with sunk cost fallacy, you're going to find it difficult to abandon that investment because you're going to be thinking, I've already invested so much, I cannot abandon it. That is how sunk cost fallacy operates. So when it comes to cults, the cults will encourage you to invest a significant amount of time, energy, money, efforts into the group. With time, you're going to start seeing that you've invested too much. There's no way you're going to just walk away from whatever investment it is. So if you've been spending a lot of time in the organization, you've been making friends, you've put a lot of money into buying whatever products the organization is selling, the cult is selling, or a lot of energy in going on missions for the organization, for the cult, you're going to feel that you cannot just abandon all that because that means your investment was worthless. This makes you believe that you have wasted your resources. It makes you believe that walking away is a sign of failure. It makes you believe that if you walk away, you might be walking away from something that could eventually pay off, So if you've been in the cult, let's say for 5 years, you've made friends, you've built a community of people that you completely relate with. They're your friends, they're your family. you've spent a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of energy in the cult, in the organization. Walking away means that you have to start afresh. Walking away means that you have to now start learning new things that you may not want, or you're not even interested in learning at this time. So it helps if you are in denial, so that you can continue investing. Because if you're in denial about the costs that you've just made, the costs that you've made into the organization, if you're in denial about those costs, and if you're in denial that those costs are not paying, then you won't start questioning whether you should continue being in the organization or not. Nobody wants to feel like they have wasted their time and their energy and their money and their efforts, or that they have been lied to. So every day you'll wake up in that cult, you'll be convincing yourself that whatever you did, whatever the organization stands for, is legit. And this confirmation will help you deal with your cognitive dissonance. It will help you to continue convincing yourself that you're doing the right thing. Even when you know that whatever you're doing is not right, it does not align with your values, it does not align with who you are as a person. That is how sunk cost fallacy works. And that's how cult leaders will use it towards you. They will try to ensure that when you join the cult, you make investments of some sorts. You're going to lose something and you're going to invest something into the cult. That could be time, that could be effort, that could be money, that could be stepping away from your friends and your family members. It's going to be an investment of some sort. You have to make a huge investment into the organization. Of course, in the beginning, it won't start off at just make this big investment one-off. It's going to start small. They're going to invite you to an event on Saturdays. And those Saturdays, maybe it's the time that you usually hang out with your family members. So you have to make a decision. Do I go to the event that is being held by the cult or the group, or do I hang out with my family members? If you choose to go to the cult or to the group in general, you're going to find that you've made that investment on that side and not in your family, if that is where you usually spend your time. That is an investment you've made. Next weekend, they're going to invite you to something else. And the weekend after that, they will invite you to something else. And the weekend after that, they will give you another task. They will give you a role. Go for outreach. Go for this thing. Go for this other thing. Kujeni Kanisa, we do this particular thing. There's always going to be something that you're investing in the organization. Remember, everything that you do is an opportunity cost. If you choose to go to the organization events held by those people, you're not going to be at the place that you wanted to be initially. You're not going to spend the time you wanted to spend with your family if you're going to spend that time with the organization. So everything you're doing is an investment. Every single thing that you do with the organization is an investment. With time, the investment will be so huge that you will find it difficult to believe that it was all for nothing. And so, because of sunk cost fallacy, you're going to continue convincing yourself that whatever is going on in the organization is legit, that it is something that you need to continue doing because you've invested too much in it. There's no way you can have invested so much time and effort and money and energy only for it to have meant nothing. Your mind cannot hold that thought. So it will try to convince you that whatever you're doing is true. Remember, all these psychological concepts are used hand in hand. Haikuangi ati they pick one and they just run with it. They will use all of them hand in hand. So remember, for sunk cost fallacy to work, you will need a lot of confirmation bias. You will need things to convince you that whatever is happening is the legit thing. You will need people who can convince you and help you find information and interpret that information to show you that what you're doing is the right thing for you at the time. Remember, all of these psychological concepts work hand in hand. They don't pick one and just work with it. They will take all of them because all of them will help spread the agenda. It will help move the conversation forward for them. It will make the thing that they want to do become more powerful because they're using many psychological concepts. The more psychological concepts that are used together at the same time, the stronger the effect they have on you. So think about sunk cost fallacy in that sense, and think about these psychological concepts in that sense. Something else that cult leaders use to manipulate people is called affirming the consequent fallacy. Affirming the consequent fallacy is also called converse error. With this particular error, there is the assumption that a statement that is true is also true in its converse form. Even if there are alternative explanations, they will not be taken into consideration. Let me give you an example. Assume somebody says they have homa, they have the cold, and they are experiencing fever. That can be true. That ukiwa na homa, when you have a cold, you can also experience fever. But then, the converse of that statement is, if you have fever today, you have homa, you have the cold. But that is not true. The converse of that statement is not true. It does not mean that when you have you have fever, you automatically have a cold. So the first statement was true, that if you have the flu, you have homa, you have a cold, you can experience fever. That can be a true statement. But the converse of that if you experience fever, it means you have a cold, is not true. Because fever can be caused by other things. It can be as a result of other things. You can have you could have Ebola, you could have whatever. So it's not always that when you have fever, you have a cold. The way that cults and cult leaders use affirming the consequent fallacy, what I've just explained, is that they will use statements. For example, let me give you a common Bible verse that is thrown around. It says, I think it's Romans 13, Romans 13:1. It says, let everybody be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. Let's say it's a religious cult. A cult leader will come to you and be like, if you believe the word of God, and the word of God says that every authority comes from God, and me as a cult leader, of course they won't call themselves a cult leader, they'll tell you that me, I've been sent by God, I am a representative of God, then you have to believe that I represent God and everything that I am doing is representative of God. You have to believe that my authority comes from God, and at the same time, everything that I say that comes from my mouth is God's word, because me, I represent God. But that is not always true. A cult leader can come in and represent God in whatever they're talking about, but also do other things that have no representation of God in any way, right? So that is how cult leaders will use small things to manipulate whatever message they're trying to put out there. They will tell you that if you believe in the word of God, and I have done X, Y, and Z, and I am a representative of God, then I am doing the right thing, because me, I'm representing God and I have been chosen by God. So if you try to overthrow them, if you try to hold them accountable, they'll be like, when you're questioning God, because you can't say that you believe in God and you believe the word of God and you believe that all authority comes from God, and also question my authority because I am a representative of God. So think about how a cult leader would manipulate you using that particular technique, telling you that if A is true, then B is true, and the converse is true as well, without considering that a statement can be true, but its converse not necessarily true. They are just jumping into conclusions over something that is not, that is a logical fallacy. Think about it that way. Affirming the consequent, very common. It is used by people, especially people in authority, people who do not want to be questioned, and they will try to manipulate you into believing that questioning them means that you're questioning the power that has been vested on them. If it's a politician and you hold them accountable, they can be like, hey, are you questioning our democracy? People chose me. They chose me for a reason. Kwani, who do you think you are? And they're forgetting that just because you've been chosen, just because you're the person that considers yourself chosen, does not mean that you are above the law, that you are above reproach. That is not how it works. So think about affirming the consequent fallacy every time you hear people making illogical conclusions. They use a true premise and make an illogical conclusion. And you can call them out when you hear people do this, because they are trying to confuse you. They are trying to make you doubt whatever you know. Think about that very, very deeply. The eighth psychological concept that cult leaders will use, and cults in general will use, is group thinking. I have mentioned this in the previous episode, and I went in depth with that. So this one I won't go in depth too much, because you already have an idea of what it is if you have listened to the previous episode. Cult leaders will often promote group thinking, and they will discourage critical thinking at all costs. They do not want anybody doing any kind of independent decision making, because if you're doing independent decision making, then whatever decisions you're making are not conforming to the group's beliefs and practices. So the pressure to conform to group norms and defer decision making to the will of the group will make it very difficult for you as an individual to speak up by yourself. Remember what I mentioned in the previous episode, that you should check out the Ash conformity experiments so that you can understand just how difficult it is for one person to make a decision by themselves when they are standing in a group that is agreeing to something that is opposite to what they believe in. So as a group, if you're being forced to believe in the same thing, you're being forced to preach the same idea to everybody that you meet, As an individual, it will be very difficult for you to just stand up and be like, Apana, I'm going to choose a different path. Being different, going against the grain, is one of the hardest things in the world, because it means that you'll have to risk being an outcast. It means that you'll have to risk being wrong. Group thinking is highly encouraged in cults. Again, think about this when you're thinking about the groups that you belong to. Is critical thinking discouraged? Is critical thinking punished? And is group thinking and conforming to the group norms and practices the thing that is highly rewarded? Number 9, gaslighting and scapegoating members. So this happens when maybe, let's say for example, this person, the cult leader, predicted something was going to occur, the world was going to end in 2010, right? If that was their prediction and it does not occur, they will not accept that they may have made a mistake. What they will do instead, they will come and say, it is the world did not end because you people did not pray enough, because some of you were unholy, some of you did not follow the rituals we had agreed on, some of you did not, when we said sell all your belongings and bring your proceeds to church, some of you did not do that. Some of you went ahead and hid their belongings instead of selling them and bringing them to the church as we agreed upon. A cult leader will also make you believe that there's something wrong with you. If you have questions about the cult, if you are questioning their authority, if you are saying things that do not conform to the group, they are going to confirm to you that you're the problem. They are going to convince you that you are the problem, that you're the one who is doing something wrong. What is wrong with you that you're not believing, yet everybody else is believing? What is it that you're looking for out there that you're not getting in the group, that we are not offering you? Are you not interested in doing the Lord's work like you've been called to do? That will be the question they'll be asking you. They'll be asking you these very manipulative questions to make you doubt your own reality. If something bad happens, you will always be the problem, never the cult leader. The cult leader will never take responsibility for anything. If something shady is happening within the organization, they will tell you not to question it, because if you question it, you are questioning authority, you're questioning the Lord's chosen, if it's a religious cult. I remember I said this in the beginning, and I will say it again. If you hear me giving examples of religious organizations, it's because those are like the most prominent cults that we know of. So I'm not attacking a religion, I am just using them as an example, because probably they have some examples that are usable. It's not because they are cults, I'm just saying. So think about how the organization you belong to might be scapegoating you, might be gaslighting you, making you doubt your own reality, might be making you think that there's something wrong with you for having a different idea, for having different beliefs. And if you are not encouraged to follow these individualistic ideas, to think about your life, to think about your own goals, and everything you're doing is supposed to be for the group, and you are punished for not conforming to the group, then that is a problem. The cult will always want you to stay loyal and obedient to the group. Remember, fear is the tactic that they will use. If the cult you belong to, if you belong to a cult, if the group you belong to is always using fear tactics, shaming you, putting you on the spotlight, especially when it is something that is embarrassing, that is something that is very personal, they spotlight you to make you feel anxious, to make you feel afraid, to make you feel like everybody's eyes is on you, to isolate you when you don't follow the group norms. That is a problem. Number 10, operant conditioning. Operant conditioning is one of the psychological theories that are used for learning. Very powerful theory, very powerful concept, and the main tools that are used in operant conditioning are rewards and punishment. So in a cult, acceptable behavior, especially conforming, overextending yourself, volunteering your assets, your time, your energy, your finances, your efforts, those are things that will be praised. They will be paraded, they will be applauded, you will be put on a pedestal for doing the best. They'll always be saying that every time you do something that conforms to the group, something that aligns with the cult's ideas, then you're the best person, you're going to be treated nicely, you're going to be given the best of the best, you're going to be approached with so much care and tenderness, nini. But then, undesirable behavior like questioning and doubting, those are things that will be punished. And that punishment could be physical, that punishment could be emotional, could be psychological. If you do not conform, you might be isolated, You might be humiliated. People will be told not to talk to you. They'll be told not to invite you to the events. They'll be told not to call you on the phone. You will not have friends to hang out with. And because nobody wants to feel isolated, those people will not refuse to hang out with you because they are bad people. They'll be trying to protect their own interests. They also don't want to be isolated like you. They don't want to be kicked out of the group like you. So when you see people isolating you because you have done something that is going against the norms of the cult that you are in, it's not like those guys are bad people. Most of them are just protecting themselves because they don't know any other way of protecting themselves. Remember, as I said, the moment you stand out, the moment you seem like you're different from the group, you draw too much attention to yourself, and that raises questions that makes the organization, the cult group, doubt your connection and your loyalty to the organization. And that needs to be squashed. Because if you become an unconforming person, if you become somebody who raises questions, there's a high likelihood that you could cause an uprising, you could cause a coup in the organization and end up making people leave the cult. And that is not in the best interest of the cult leader. That is not in the best interest of the organization. So that is how they will use operant conditioning. They will reward behavior that seems to be good enough for the organization. The acceptable behavior will be very well rewarded. You will be given the best of the best. You will be, if it's a house, you will be given the best house in the organization. You will be given a position. You'll be given gifts. You'll be visited often. The pastor will call you nice names, or the pastress. For those people who call their pastors and their pastresses mommy and daddy, you will sit with them pale mbele. You will be given a position of leadership in the organization, in the church, because you're doing what the organization or the church believes in. And you're doing the things that conform to the organization. But if you're the person that asks question, kwa nini sadaka ni kidogo? Kwa nini mommy and daddy, they are buying a helicopter with church offerings? You will be told that you are questioning the church. You are questioning authority. You are questioning God's chosen. The thing about especially churches that I highly believe in is that the pastor or pastress or reverend, bishop, whoever the leader is, should not be living a life that is more affluent than the average church goer in that congregation. So if in your church, the average person cannot afford to put food on their table, then your pastor should not afford to put food on their table. Because the pastor should be the average of everybody in the church. Because if your pastor is living like a multi-millionaire and the average person in the church cannot afford to put food on their table, then there's somebody who is lying to somebody else. Kuna mahali we are lying to each other. So this is my personal belief. You can believe what you want, but my personal belief is that the average churchgoer should not be living like a pauper when the leadership, the church leadership, is living extravagantly. That is insulting, and there's somebody who is lying to somebody. Ndio wana unasikianga watu, they keep saying sadaka ni tamu sana, because it seems like the people who are in leadership, especially in the church, they're the ones who are eating the sadakas and living affluent lives, buying choppers left, right, and center, and nice cars and all these things. But the average church goer cannot even put their child through school. Even the school that is owned by that church, the average church member cannot bring their child to that school because they cannot afford it. Yet the church has built that school with the proceeds of sadaka, the offering from the congregation. Anyway, let me stop preaching that point. Sitaki mnikujie. I'm just saying. Nikusema tu, by the way. Hizi vitu nikusema tu. So don't attack me, please. I am not dangerous, I promise. I am a very calm person. I am not out to cause drama or problems. Anyway, moving on swiftly to last but definitely not least, psychological concept that cult leaders use to manipulate you. It's the last one that I mentioned in the beginning, about it being very controversial and some people believing that it is a pseudoscience, and its proponents believing that it is the best thing that has ever happened in the history of things happening. And this is neurolinguistic programming. So I was looking at Wikipedia. I like reading Wikipedia. It's not the only place that I do research, of course, but I like reading Wikipedia because it's like it brings together all the information that exists about a particular topic. So I was just looking at neurolinguistic programming on Wikipedia, and it says that it is an approach to communication and personal development which believes that there is a connection between the neurological processes, language, and acquired behavior patterns, and that these can be changed to achieve a specific goal in life. I do not have any experience in NLP. That's what it's called in short. I do not have any vested interests in NLP, but I know that there are people who have been taught this thing and they practice it on a daily basis. Wikipedia says that there is no scientific evidence supporting the claims made by NLP advocates. It has been called a pseudoscience because the beliefs and practices that are claimed by NLP are not factual, they are not scientific, and they are incompatible with the scientific method. The other part of that argument that NLP could be a pseudoscience is that reviewers have found that research that favors NLP continues to have significant methodological flaws, and that there are 3 times as many studies of a much higher quality that fail to reproduce the extraordinary claims that are made by NLP practitioners. I don't have much interest in this particular topic because I am not a practitioner of NLP. I have never practiced NLP. It has never come up in my training as a psychologist. And so the information I have is information from other practitioners. And that's why I'm saying the proponents of NLP are very vocal about it, saying that it works. And the opponents of NLP are saying that it's a pseudoscience, that the magical, extraordinary outcomes that are produced by NLP cannot be reproduced scientifically by other scientists. They have tried, but those results can never be reproduced because they are not reproducible. So NLP is something that you need to read further on. I definitely will read further on this if I get the interest in it. It is not, as I've said, it's not something that I have any interest in. But if the time ever comes up that I have enough time to go through this, I will definitely go through it and understand it better. But for now, when I was doing the research about cults, NLP is seen as one of the psychological concepts that cult leaders will use to manipulate you psychologically, to make you believe that their promises are true, that the things that they practice, the things that they tell you are true, and those things can be used to give you the best life that you're looking for. Having said that, allow me to come to the end of this episode. We have spoken a lot about all the psychological concepts that are used by cult leaders to manipulate you to join their cult. Psychology is a powerful field of study. We all know that once you learn human psychology, you have with you power that is unmatched. You can control many aspects of humanity. And cult leaders have mastered human psychology. And they have mastered good marketing. They know how to make sure that the information reaches the people that they want the information to reach. They will find you at your desperate point of need, and that is where they will attack and invite you into their cult and convince you that their cult has the answers that you're looking for. If you have learned something out of this episode, and I do hope that you have learned something out of this episode, please let me know. Tell me which of these psychological concepts you have seen being used in whatever organization you belong to. How many times have you seen your particular leader using any of these psychological concepts? In what scenarios were they using it? What were they trying to convince you about when they were using these psychological concepts? In the next episode, we are going to be talking about why people join cults. If you want to understand why people join cults, even the ones that are very damaging, the ones that end up with people losing their lives, then stick around for the next episode. It is going to be linked in the description box. Share this episode with a friend. Let them know what we are talking about. Let them understand so that they can never be caught unawares. As we said, people perish for lack of knowledge, lack of wisdom. Do not be a person who lacks wisdom or knowledge. Join the knowledgeable group. Let's learn. Let's educate each other. Let's open our eyes so that we are not taken advantage of. Take care of yourself. Take care of your mental health. And I will see you in the next episode.